Good evening. Welcome to the State of Scottish Football. I'm David Smith. We are live across Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, anywhere you can find us. And I'm not alone. I am joined in the company of Dr. Grant Campbell. And Grant, we're back with a vengeance, or I'm back with a vengeance for my Aldi Wi-Fi problems. And it's great to work alongside your fine self again.
Well, it's great to see that your Wi-Fi problems have been sorted, David, and it's great to be in your company once again. So I'm looking forward to the night show, and it's great to have you on, even though it looks like on my screen I'm from the 1980s, but I am still here.
Okay, fantastic. I mean, everybody knows Dr. Grant Campbell, knows that scientific stuff started or pretty much existed as of the 1980s. So we're off to a good start there, Dr. Grant Campbell. Anyway, we need to start the show on a negative note, unfortunately. And as much as it was a fantastic victory for St Johnstone away to Dundee last night, it was a game in which it was marred by, after St Johnstone scored opening goal through Sean Rooney, Leigh Griffiths, after the St Johnstone fans kicked their flare onto the pitch, Leigh Griffiths kicked it off the pitch, but did just throw it onto the sidelines. He chucked it, he kicked it into the stands. And Grant, Dundee have released a statement today, but you probably don't show any remorse from that point of view, even though there was even though Dundee put out the statement.
It's just extremely sad to see Leigh Griffiths once again get involved in such controversy. You know, Griffiths is such a special talent at his best. You know, he's got a wonderful wand of a foot to score some fantastic goals. I thought the move to Dundee would maybe be his last chance to try and rediscover some of the old form that he had in some days at Celtic, but obviously mostly at his days at Hibernian. But I think last night, David, was sheer frustration, but just sheer petulance from a guy who, as it says on the screen below us, had a chance of making Steve Clarke's Euro squad this summer. And now it seems to me that once again, he is in the pages for all the wrong reasons.
Exactly. And one compliment I'm going to give before we go to the next question. Thanks very much to Eamon Hurst. I'm assuming you're on about my wall in the background here, saying, loving your Artex seal with black border. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated, my friend. We're off to a great start on this show, so thanks very much for that. Much appreciated. Grant, back on to Leigh Griffiths. And Dundee, the move to Dundee showed so much potential, so much capabilities for Leigh Griffiths, the footballer. But not scoring since his arrival at the club, and last night's events just suggests that, not that Dundee are in a bad way by any stretch of imagination, but it's just Leigh Griffiths is still what he was like back when the problems started initially.
Absolutely. I think there's a big few days coming up for James McPake, because I think he has to get in touch with Leigh Griffiths, sit him in his office if he can. Obviously, we're in the COVID world these days, but sit him down and just actually ask him what is going on and how can the club help him through this very difficult phase at the moment. I mean, we don't know what goes on in Leigh Griffiths' private life. We can only assume that it's not in the best of form after what has happened. You know, it was a really bizarre incident. You know, we've talked a lot about science on tonight's show inadvertently. Well, pyrotechnics is an extremely dangerous form, and quite frankly, the person who did throw the pyro onto the pitch, the blue pyro, you know, was to blame as well. And you know, we don't like to see that. We're all loving St Johnstone and what they've been doing, and it's absolutely fantastic. But you know, you shouldn't be doing that in any form of sport. So I do feel a little bit of sympathy there. But what I do think that Griffiths did was just sheer stupidity. You know, it could have seriously injured somebody. It could have been a very, very serious accident. Thankfully, it seems like nobody was hurt. But you know, it was just moronic is the word I'd use. And I think it's just once again another layer of controversy that he doesn't need, and crucially Dundee don't need, because as you've alluded to, Dundee haven't had the best of starts since the return to the top flight. They missed a great opportunity last night to make what would have been a National Cup semi-final. It was a game that I felt was there for the taking for them at times last night. I'm sure we'll come on to talk about that in a minute. But the game will be remembered for, as I said, a moronic incident that really was completely avoidable by Griffiths.
Do you think the SFL throwing hot water over Leigh Griffiths?
I don't see what else they can do. I really think that there's a hefty ban coming in his way. I'd be very surprised if there is not a 5-game ban minimum. I also think some form of fine or some form of communication in terms of going into schools to talk about instances like this and to try and actually see that, you were wrong in these situations and try and educate them about things like that. I see something maybe coming in that form, or should come in that form. But I think the club need to sit Leigh Griffiths down and actually ask what is going on. Because, as you've alluded to, he hasn't scored since coming to the club. Okay, he's not had a lot of game time, but he has had some great chances in the games he's had. Remember, he had a couple of big chances in the Dundee derby at the weekend, and he had a couple of good chances last night against St Johnstone. And, to be fair to him in the game itself, up until that incident, he was looking like he was going to cause St Johnstone some problems. But, we're talking about an incident like that, if kids are watching that on TV, they will look at that and think that that's acceptable, but it clearly isn't. And I think something needs to be done. And this is where the SFA can play a blinder here. Because, yes, they can give him a hefty ban and they can give him a fine, but they could also turn it into a positive. And I think that would be very interesting. And that's a really good point. You'll be lucky to play in the top league next season. And it is becoming a bit of a circus. And you look at the situation with Jason Cummings coming to the club, who also has his problems, as we've alluded to in the past. Dundee have to be very careful that they don't set themselves up for a big fall, because they're on the back foot in the Premiership, and they need to get points on the board, and they need guys that are going to commit to the club, and they need Griffiths to be firing. But if he's getting involved in instances like this, is it sometimes better to just get rid of it altogether?
I'm going to speak from my personal point of view for the next question. I'm a regular reporter at Dens Park. They're a very welcoming club. A lot of good people at that club, and they're very complimentary and very communicative. Whenever I go and cover Dundee press conferences or go to Dundee games, but if you look at events over the last few months, including years, there's a lot going wrong at that club. And I mean that in a good way. I don't mean that in a try to be negative towards the club kind of thing. But you've had Gordon Strachan that's involved with Dundee, also has the Celtic communications as well.
Yes.
Jason Cummings, as you alluded to, Griffiths. You've also had the vote to send Hearts down from the Premiership during coronavirus. Mm. And as much as Dundee are a good club, there's also things that could be improved.
They do shoot themselves in the foot, and that's some really good points that you made there, some that I've completely forgotten about, particularly the vote, which I thought was quite a bizarre incident in the first place, wasn't it, during COVID? That was just extraordinary and bizarre. But, I just feel so sad for Dundee because, they are a big club. They are a respected club in Scottish football. We'll obviously talk about the game in a moment. But, it's great to see Dundee back in the top flight of Scottish football. We've missed the Dundee derbies. We've missed Dundee's battles with St Johnstone in the Tayside derby. We've missed the battles that they've had against Aberdeen, how they can go toe-to-toe with teams like Hibs earlier in the season. Instances like this put the club in a bad light. And I don't want to see that for any club in Scottish football, period. I don't want to see that in Scottish football at all. But, when something like this happens, people will say it's a heat of the moment thing. Sorry, I don't buy that at all. That's not a heat of the moment thing. That's just sheer stupidity. I just think that the whole club are in a problem. But I think Griffiths needs to actually come out of this and say, look, hands up, they made a mistake, and actually not turn himself in, but, if the SFA come to him, accept your penalty, accept your ban or your fine, and turn it into a positive. Because that's the only way he can come out of any good in this. Otherwise, I think he's finished.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll continue with Dundee before we go into St Johnstone, because obviously we're on the topic regarding Dundee Football Club. And Dundee as a whole, last night, Grant, they had a lot of good chances in the first half, but in all honesty, did very little to troubles under Clark.
They missed some big chances. John McGee missed an absolutely massive chance in front of goal from actually a really good Leigh Griffiths cross, actually, and it was straight at Xander Clark, either side of the goalkeeper. I think he scores. They had a lot of good interchanges in and around the 18-yard box. I thought Max Anderson looked pretty sharp in the game. But Dundee are missing a spark just now. I know Cummins was out with illness last night. Am I correct, David? I think he was out with illness last night. So that's a big loss. That gives you a different dimension, I think.
Charlie Adam as well, sorry.
What's that?
Charlie Adam as well, sorry.
Charlie Adam as well, yeah. Well, they had they add different values to the team. They add a degree of pizzazz, a bit of quality, just a bit of belief mentally in the team. And when Dundee were passing up these good opportunities, you just felt was going to come back to haunt them. I mean, we saw it in the Dundee derby, didn't it? It was the same again, really. They had a lot of good play, a lot of good balls into the box, they had good chances, but just can't take them. And I think Brian McLaughlin made a really good point post-match. Is it the step up to the Premiership level, which shows that if you don't take your chances, you get punished? And that's exactly what St Johnstone did.
Absolutely. And away from the game, briefly, it's just been announced in the last couple of hours that Dundee play Aberdeen at 6 p.m. 6 p.m., you heard correctly, 6 p.m. on October the 16th. God, a bit bizarre, is it not? Obviously, we don't know the ins and outs here, but a bit bizarre.
It's a strange kick-off time, isn't it? I'm not entirely sure why it's the case. I don't know if anybody actually knows that can maybe elaborate and let us know on the show, but I think it's an intriguing kick-off time. I don't know if it's to coincide with, other events that are happening in and around that particular date. Is it a trial by the SPFL to maybe get a bigger attendances at games on a Saturday night? I don't know. I think they've tried to do this sort of thing in the past, and it's worked in some ways, but not worked in others. So it's going to be intriguing to see what happens with that. But I did see that, and I was like, that is a bit bizarre.
Absolutely. Back onto last night, and Dundee, or James McPake for that matter, will be scratching his head this evening, because Dundee played well in the first half as well. They got the counter-attacking areas. They did that very well. Cammy Kerr had a lot of joy.
Cammy Kerr had a really good game, I thought. Cammy Kerr had a very good effort. Clark made a good save in the first half. I thought that was good. It was a really good save that he had. Really, really good effort.
The frustration that I would have if I was a Dundee fan would be that Paul McMillan cut in far too much for my liking. You also had Max Anderson, as you alluded to, that had a good game. But James McPake was scratching his head this evening with regards to not taking their chances. And St Johnstone had to be resilient, and once they were resilient and got their goal, it was only one winner.
I think St Johnstone have shown over the last even 18 months that they have this great character and real belief that even when it's not going their way, if they stay in the game, they'll always get an opportunity. And you mentioned there about James McPake not being happy with the amount of chances that they spun. I think he'll be massively disappointed at the way the opening goal was conceded. It wasn't the best of corners in the world. And credit to Sean Rooney, big player for the big occasion. He scores the big goals, obviously, in the 2 cup finals last season. But it was a scruffy goal. I think it got a deflection, wasn't it, off Ashcroft? And completely.
You're a very intelligent man, Dr. Grant Campbell, because Callum Davidson echoed your comments.
Yeah, I think it was a very scruffy goal. And, okay, for St Johnstone, it's great. You've got a goal. It's not the cleanest goal in the world, but they all count. But if I'm a Dundee fan, and crucially James McPake, I'd be absolutely frustrated and furious that a goal was conceded in such a poor fashion, because St Johnstone were working their way into the game. And, again, I allude back to the post-match interview with Brian McLaughlin, because I listened to the game on the radio. And the thing that really intrigued me was the fact that Callum Davidson said they had a go. But having watched the highlights of the game and having watched parts of the game, because I was watching the Rangers game later on, but the intriguing thing was it felt like after an hour was then where St Johnstone clicked into the game. It was almost like first 30 minutes we stay in the game. Next sort of 30 minutes we sort of build things up. And then in the last 30 minutes we showcase what we can do. And that's how they played it. And you have to give full credit to Callum Davidson, because he played it a blinder last night.
Oh, 100% he did.
Actually, he was astute in every measure. And it was the same on Saturday against Aberdeen. Threw Stevie May on at the right time, got their goal. I think what I really like about St Johnstone is they don't have a lot of flashy players, but they've got a lot of working players. Glenn Middleton, I think, is really flourishing in a St Johnstone shirt. I think Murray Davidson, you're always going to get a shift in the midfield. Liam Craig, these guys know the club inside out. They breathe St Johnstone. They love it. They really do. And I think what I love about St Johnstone is they never give up. I love Rooney. I think he's absolutely fantastic. Xander Clark pulls off a couple of big saves. If you're going to be successful, you need a good keeper. Clark, for me, once again, has pushed himself into that frame of being in that bracket to maybe be the next Scotland #1 moving forward, with Craig Gordon and Alan McGregor move on. Well, I said Alan McGregor, but Craig Gordon and David Marshall move on. Of course, Alan McGregor has no, of course, I was really saying that. But it's interesting to see the dynamics that have really changed in that St Johnstone team. They used to be a team that I think were very comfortable of just being a mid-table side, always trying to survive. Now they're the team that, having won the Cup double, they're like, well, we've done well. We had a good run in Europe. We want to give it our best in Europe. Okay, we were up against it, but they gave a very good account. But in the Cups, what I love about St Johnstone is like they show no fear. That was a tough game for them last night at Dens, and they came through it well. And now they're back at Hampden again. I think it's the fifth time in 8 years or something?
Fifth time in 8 months.
8 months, sorry. That's phenomenal, that really is phenomenal.
We'll get on to the fans, we'll get on to Hampden in a minute, but one player I'd like to touch upon last night is Callum Davidson. I thought he was brilliant last night. He deservedly got man of the match right by Ron McLean and Michael Stewart last night. Yeah,
he did. He's an excellent player. And I talk about St Johnstone, and a word I never used there in my last comment there. They are a unit. They all work together. It reminded me of Leicester when they won the Premier League. Okay, they're not a Premiership winning team. They never will be because Rangers and Celtic have so much resources and they will always be 1 and 2. But what I love about St Johnstone is if you are going to be successful, everybody has to give more than 100%. They all have to work for each other. If you go down to 10 men, you need other guys to get that extra 5%, work as a unit. Everybody goes in defence together. Everybody goes in attacks together. And that's what I really love about St Johnstone. They know how to play the game well. Don't give too much away. Don't score a lot of goals, which is maybe a small criticism. But they crucially don't concede a lot of goals. And that's what I really love about the way they set up, particularly in the game at the weekend against Aberdeen. They've really frustrated them at Pittodrie. And last night they went down to Dens and they soaked up the pressure, a bit like Leicester did when they won the Premier League in 2016. Yeah. And they hut when it mattered. You know, they got out balls. Guys like Middleton, guys like O'Halloran that can be that out ball. Crawford was there last night. We'll talk about him in a minute. He was really good last night, I felt, as well. These are guys that are out balls, wanting the ball carriers, just driving at the defence. And they attack in the right times. They play their football in the right areas of the pitch. And crucially, and this was something that I felt was lacking from at the start of the season, they're hitting the goals at the key times. And last night they scored at the key moments.
And Sean Rooney in competition scoring goals, just a mutual connection.
It's just extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, his valuation must go up by the competition or the round of the competition. I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal. And the thing is, the goal that he scored last night was one of the scuffiest goals you'll ever see being scored, but he won't care. St Johnstone won't care. And crucially, their fans won't care.
Absolutely. Ali Crawford, you touched upon him. I thought he was brilliant last night.
He certainly was. He took his goal very well. It was actually a very poor cross, actually, because I think he was saying it on a commentary. I think he should have been looking at Steve.
Win the ball for Cammy Kerr.
Yeah, it was actually a really good piece of play. And then he tries to drive it across. I think he's actually just trying to drive it across a 6-yard box note for a tap into the back post. I think he gets it all wrong. But credit to Crawford, he just reacts. It's a really, really tidy finish. And, you know, sometimes I'm a bit critical of the way it was built up and there maybe was a hint of fortune about it. But there's nothing fortuitous about the way Crawford connected with that ball. That is pure class. That is real composure. And I'll tell you something, David. I think Crawford will be a very astute signing for St Johnstone. A lot of St Johnstone fans I follow on social media and I follow on many other platforms were very concerned about how they would cope with the loss of McCann in midfield, and particularly Kerr at central defence. Well, since those guys have left, they've won at Pittodrie, they've won at Dens. I think this weekend they've got Hibs, haven't they? It's going to be a very interesting game. So, you know, I don't think St Johnstone are in a bad place right now. And, you know, they've recruited well in those areas. Crawford has had Scottish Premiership experience with Hamilton. You know, you've got guys in there like Effie Ambrose has come in and obviously has had a lot of experience now at Livy with Hibs and obviously with Celtic. You know, he will definitely help that back line as well. He's a bit flashy and a little bit unorthodox, as we know. But, you know, there is aspects of Ambrose's game which have definitely improved. And what I love about Davidson is he knows that in the market, he will get guys who will put a shift in. And I mentioned there about the guys that have always been there, your Witherspoons, your Craigs and stuff like that. You know, he's sourced out guys like Craig Conway, of course, is no longer at the club. But he's sourced out guys like Middleton, O'Halloran, Chris Kane, who he's had so much trust in at the top end of the pitch. The criticism I have of Chris Kane is he doesn't score enough goals. But he reminds me of Lyndon Dykes, David. What he does is he holds a ball up, he gets his teammates involved in the game, he could add more goals to his game, but what I really love about him is he never stops working. And Stevie May is exactly the same. Stevie May was ridiculed by a lot of Aberdeen fans when he left the club. Well, I think Stevie May got the last laugh on Saturday, and fair play to him, because I actually really admired Stevie May when he was at Aberdeen. I felt he got a lot of bad press, in my opinion. But what I loved about that goal last night from Crawford is the way he just makes that Lampard-esque run into the box. You know, that number 8 style goal when he's coming in, and he tucks it away really well, and it's the clinching goal. And it was a fantastic result in the end for St Johnstone.
Yeah. Cole P, I noticed you're asking when's the semi-final draw. It's getting made at, I believe, Celtic Park after the.
It's getting made after the game tonight. Yep.
Yeah, so it'll be done at about 9:45, 10 p.m. tonight, Cole. So here's hoping for a good run of semi-finals in November. But and speaking about November, we've got fans. We'll have fans in November, and St Johnstone fans have missed a lot. They've missed St Johnstone winning the double. They've missed 4 Hampden trips. 5th time lucky.
Absolutely, and I think any fan would be absolutely delighted for St Johnstone last night. You know, their story last season really caught the imaginations of many neutrals. I mean, the result at Ibrox was absolutely sensational, and they couldn't get the opportunity to celebrate that win at Ibrox. The win against Hibs in the semi-final in the League Cup, I thought, was outstanding. You know, they beat St Mirren in the Scottish Cup semi-final. And the one thing I loved about particularly the Scottish Cup final was the way in which, you know, they dug in and they got it done, because Hibs were probably the favourites going into that game, and they nullified Hibs' threats. But the fans deserve so much. And what I really love about St Johnstone is they are a community club. The fans really do buy into what they're trying to do. There doesn't seem to be, certainly for the moment at least, not a lot of, you know, problems within the club. There will obviously be things that people don't agree with, but what you're seeing is that the disappointment of losing guys like McCann and Kerr, as I mentioned earlier on, they have recruited to replace those guys, in my opinion at least, effectively well. They might not be as good as these players are, but they will do a competent job. And I think the fans really just are flying on the crest of a wave right now. You know, they really are riding that crest of a wave right now. And I think what will be interesting is who they get in the semi-final, because no one will want to play them because they are the defending champions. That is a stone cold fact. They know how to do it in the cup competitions. And I'll tell you something, David. Say they drew Rangers in the semi-finals. I think Steven Gerrard would be worried. I really do. I'd expect Rangers to be the favourites, of course, but I don't think he'll be taking anything for granted, especially after what happened in the Scottish Cup.
Absolutely. Thanks for all your comments coming in. We're getting comments left, right and centre. Thankfully, it's about football and not about us gentlemen as pundits. Graham Caldwell is on here saying St Johnstone have set a record which will probably never be bettered. 5 appearances at Hampden in 1 calendar year. If they win a semi-final, it will be 6. And that's the thing. Sean Rooney was asked the question last night. Obviously, there's an embargo in place, so I can't exactly tell you all what he said in response, but he was asked the question last night, Rooney, with regards to losing McCann and losing Kerr. There seemed to be a mentality amongst Scottish football fans in general about the quality of player that they lost. But that didn't seem to be the mentality in the St Johnstone camp. And the likes of Crawford and Cammy McPherson and Dundalker, they've came in and not looked out of place. It looks like they've been there for years. Absolutely, they haven't. They've just settled in really nicely. They're like taking a brick out of a wall and replacing it with another one, and it fitting just as effectively. You know, I just think I think what I really love about Callum Davidson is he reminds me of Steve Clarke in some respects. He's got a system, and he gets players to fit that system. Now, a lot of people, a lot of fans maybe don't. I want them to be a bit more attacking, a bit more adventure than that. But it gets results. And if it's a successful formula, David, you stick with that successful formula. And that's what I really love about what Callum Davidson is doing. And my biggest worry for St Johnstone supporters who are listening to this tonight is if someone, say, in the Championship in England was to get the sack, will Davidson be on their shortlist? Because I think anybody who has a footballing brain will be looking across British football and thinking, who is a reasonably good coach that could do a competent job at, let's be honest, a level which is a step up from Scottish football? Because in my opinion, English Championship
is a step up from Scottish football. Now, people might disagree. That's just my personal opinion. Now, I don't want Callum Davidson to lose St Johnstone. I want Callum Davidson to be at St Johnstone until kingdom come. I think he's a fantastic guy. He's a breath of fresh air, and I really enjoy his post-match interviews. But let's not make any bones about this. He's going to be a wanted man. He's a very successful man. He's guided St Johnstone to history. You mentioned earlier on about the fact that they're going to be reaching Hampden for the 5th time in 8 months. It could be 6 if they won the semi-final, depending on who they draw. That is just astonishing numbers. You know, we haven't even seen Celtic or Rangers manage to do that. You know, it's quite incredible, really, when you think about it.
Yeah. Right, we're going to leave Dundee for a wee while and switch across to Govan. We're obviously going to... I would recommend you strap your seatbelts in this evening because we're going to be going from Dundee to Glasgow, back to Dundee and then off to Glasgow again. So, on to Rangers. Stephen Gerrard had emphasised the importance of this tie last night, Grant, and was rewarded with a dominant home performance. A good win for Rangers.
A much-needed win for Rangers, I'd argue. I think it's been a bit of a tricky last couple of weeks for them. You know, really since that game with St Johnstone, to be honest. I know they won the game, but they kind of made heavy weather of it. They did come from a goal down. Maybe got a slight bit of fortune with the penalty, even though it was a penalty. They needed that bit of brilliance from James Tavernier to win the game. But then after that, they were pretty sketchy against Motherwell. You know, it almost feels like they're a car engine that is spluttering and not really getting off the line at the moment. But I thought last night, you know, first half, Rangers played okay. I thought they played admirably. But to be fair to Livingston, they frustrated Rangers. You would expect them to because they are away from home. I expected the game to go as it did in the first half. And I think Rangers needed that injection at half-time to try and change things up, to try and be a wee bit more adventurous, and really just try and take the game to Livingston. And, you know, it was rewarded just a couple of minutes into the second half because Hadji, off the bench, Giannis Hadji, made such a big difference. And just within it, I think it was his first moment getting into the Livingston box. He pulls a fantastic cutback for Kemar Roof, who really can't miss. And that really just settled everybody down inside Ibrox Stadium because the longer the game was 0-0, the more you could sense that Livingston could believe that they could get a result, whether it was via extra time, whether it was via penalties, or whether it was in the 90 minutes. And I think that goal really just deflated Livingston very early in the second half because, you know, I thought, as I said, Livy, I thought were very astute defensively in the early stages. I think David Martindale came with a game plan to sit in and frustrate. I think the biggest problem that he will have is the fact that they didn't have much of an out ball. Andrew Shinnie was very isolated last night, and the ball really was coming back at them all the time. Rangers did miss some big chances in the first half, didn't they? Patterson missed a good chance. I think Bassey blazed one over the top. But once they got the opening goal, David, I thought Rangers really relaxed and they were comfortable. They were comfortable without being sparkling, I would say. And, you know, the second goal, I'm sure we'll talk about it in depth, but it's a real gift from Stryjek and it finishes the game. And Rangers getting through maybe third gear, but comfortable nevertheless.
The game was 0-0 at half-time. Rangers huffed and puffed, but just couldn't get that elusive first goal that they craved for. And Hadji came on and created a bit of a quality, and that quality was shown with the first goal, which Roof tucked away. Yeah,
he did. And I like Hadji. I think he's been a big miss for Rangers since he's been out with injury and, of course, with COVID-19. But, you know, I saw that in the opening game against Livingston in the league. You know, he scored a really good goal to open the score in that game. I actually thought he was one of Rangers' best players that day. And I think Rangers have really missed that injection of pace, of energy. And I think Hadji gives you that. I think a lot of people were critical of Hadji last season for not scoring enough goals. But Hadji can add a wee bit more than just goals. I think he can add creativity with his assists. I think he can take defenders on like he did in the opening goal last night. And what I think he has got and really improved upon at the start of this season and showcased last night is his vision and composure to just square that across for Kemar Roof, who needed a goal last night. I think Kemar Roof has had a bit of an up and down start to this season. I think there have been flashes of when he has shown that he is very much at his best. But I think at times he's been a little bit flat, a little bit lacking in the final ball, lacking in a little bit of confidence to take the shot on. But, you know, he got in good areas last night, Roof, and I think him and Hadji really worked well, especially in the second half. And obviously Morelos really enjoyed that dynamism as well. And you know, obviously that was a big reason how they managed to get the second goal. But I do feel that Hadji did make a big difference when he came off the bench last night, David.
I'm going to reset from the Rangers game just briefly here. I think this is a very good comment from Matt McIver, just came in here, saying Leigh Griffiths should have a special place in the heart of every Scotland fan. Some people let the personality inflate the story. I want Leigh to succeed in everything he does. And from my point of view, Matt, I agree with that. I mean, Leigh Griffiths is a proven goal scorer. He's a serial goal scorer. It's just matters off the park and matters in the friction of things that frustrate people. And Grant, I'm pretty sure you can agree with what I'm trying to get across here.
I kind of do, and I absolutely see where that guy is coming from, and I think it's a very valid point. My problem with Leigh Griffiths is I feel, and this may be a very critical view, a very harsh view, but I feel he has been living off those 2 free kicks against England since. I think as good as those goals were, and as big a buzz as it's been for Scotland supporters, I do feel that he is living off that for too long. Remember, Scotland didn't even win the game. People forget about that. I think Griffiths, I mentioned this earlier on, is a special talent, or was a special talent. But, sometimes if you are going to make it in the top of the game, you have to screw it up. And Griffiths hasn't done that. He's let himself down. He's let his personal life travel into his professional environment and in his game. He had a big opportunity at Celtic. And for me, never really showcased his potential consistently enough. He let himself down. He let his teammates down. And he let previous managers down. And, that is my frustration with Griffiths. He's an enigma. And I think if he had just knuckled down and showcased what he could do on a more consistent basis, I think we'd be talking still about a special talent. But, I will always have my view on that. But I can understand where your comment is coming from, though.
Yeah. On the second goal, calamitous for Livingston, but good for Frederick to go and score that second goal for Rangers last night to pull the game off.
I think it's an absolute shocker from Stryjek, who, up until that point, I thought had a really, really good game in between the sticks for Livingston. He made a succession of excellent saves. But to be honest, David, Livingston were warned about that situation about playing it from the back because they almost got caught beforehand. And I think it was Morelos, wasn't it, that hit the goalkeeper with a shot. And, that was a big chance. And he kept them in the game at that point. I think that was about 10 minutes into the second half. And, at that stage, you just felt that the Rangers were looking good and they were looking for that second goal to just completely kill the game. Well, Stryjek really hand-wrapped, even tied the bow on a present for Alfredo Morelos, who, to be honest, I thought took far too long to actually get his shot away. I thought he made a bit of a hash of it for the start, but boy, was he clinical when he absolutely put it in the net. And that's a big goal for Alfredo Morelos, David, because I think Morelos this season has, like Ruth, maybe to a much lesser extent, shown flashes of what he can do. I think when a fit, a firing, and a on-song Alfredo Morelos is in the game, Rangers very seldom lose matches, and very seldom do Rangers look like they are going to be frustrated. But Morelos has shown so often this season an isolated, frustrated figure. But last night, that goal that he scored, I think might just be the catalyst for him to go and kick on now. And he needs to, because if he's wanting a bigger move from Rangers in the summer or beyond, or even in the January, we don't know if he might move on in January. If he wants a move, he's got to show that on a consistent basis, not just in domestic terms, but in Europe as well, because obviously Rangers have got a very competitive Europa League group. They haven't got off to a great start in that, obviously losing to Lyon. Steven Gerrard needs his big players like Morelos, like Ruth, like Hadji to consistently be bringing that to the table. It was a good result for them last night. Is it the kick on for them moving forward? We'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely. Don't worry, I'm not trying to eradicate myself from the camera here. I'm trying to find a bit of homework on last night because I'm on the Rangers review. There was a lot of strong performances from the Rangers players last night. I mean, Calvin Bassey was one player that I thought was last night.
I think Johnny McFarlane made a really interesting point on Twitter last night. I think he said that
information from my friend
that Bassey has got real potential. And I was actually speaking to a couple of guys about this last night. Is Calvin Bassey developing into now the first choice left back at Rangers? Because it's not been a great start this season for Borna Barisic, David. He's not hit the heights of last season. And on the other side, You've got Patterson, who's come in, obviously had that really big influence in the Scotland game against Moldova. From the parts I've seen Patterson playing this season, I think he's looked a different beast this season. He looks like he's bulked up. He looks like he's still got plenty to offer. As much as James Tavernier is the club captain, I think Patterson's in the better form right now. And I think if Rangers are looking to be this progressive team moving forward, is it maybe time to use those two guys as the first choice fullbacks for the next part of the season? Because certainly on form, at least, Bassey and Patterson definitely have put themselves in the frame for sure.
As for Livingston, got good in the first half, had a low block about them, had a solidity about them. But once the first goal went in, it was curtains after that.
Yeah, I think it was a very tough game for Livingston last night. They had that superb high of beating Celtic on Sunday. They had a great opportunity. I said this on the show last night with Sean McGill. They had a great opportunity to make a Glasgow double in the space of 4 days. And, I think I was looking at the betting odds. Obviously, can't be responsible for anybody listening to this, but I think Livingston were 14-1 last night to win the game. And obviously, they were 7-1 to win the game at Celtic on Sunday. And I think it's a difficult one for Martindale, because I think in some ways it was a bit of a free hit, because in some respects, David, Livingston were slightly fortunate to get there in the first place. They just about squeezed through their group. They needed a penalty shootout to beat St Mirren in the last 16. But when you go away to a Rangers or a Celtic in any of the cup competitions, you've got to defend well to have any chance. And then you need that little bit of luck as well. You need that little bit of quality, either from a set play or anything like that. I didn't really think Livingston had anything going forward to cause Rangers problems. I mean, it seemed like Rangers were intent on really stifling Motherwell and really kind of smothering them, and they were unable to get out. And it was a tough old night for Livy once certainly the first goal went in. I thought they did really well, in all honesty, to get to half-time 0-0. But I think Livingston, they did well to get to the quarterfinals. As I mentioned, they just squeezed through their group. They won that shit against someone. But I think for them, it's now back to the league, and they need to start putting some points on the board. They got that win against Celtic. Their season won't be defined by that result last night. Now in the league is where they will be defined moving forward.
On to the upcoming games for both Rangers and Livingston. I mean, last night was big for Rangers just in terms of getting that victory after the disappointment of Lyon, and then drawing against Motherwell on Sunday. Rangers travelled to Dundee at the weekend, whilst Livingston are the visitors to Hearts. I mean, we'll start with Rangers. You look at Dundee right now and think Dundee are doing a lot right, but they're just not scoring goals and ultimately not winning games of football. And from a Livingston point of view, they got a Hearts side at the start of the season very well.
Dundee remind me of another team in Northern Ireland called Portadown, who at times this season have had fantastic periods in games, but they haven't strung a 90 minutes together, and killer mistakes have cost them games and goals. And the thing with Rangers is you have to be on top of your game. And if you're not on top of your game, you simply won't win. You also need to have your big game players fit. Is Charlie Adam going to be fit? We don't really know. I don't know if you know, David. I'd be surprised if he is in contention.
Well, McPake, I'll give you an exclusive. McPake revealed on Tuesday in the press conference that he was maybe going to be fit for last night's game. The question I would have, I know we're speaking about Rangers here, but the question I would have is why tell the press, or why tell us as journalists that he's potentially going to be fit? Yeah. He did the same thing for the Dundee derby. I understand the mind game side of things, but he isn't even in the squad, which just speaks volumes or just speaks questions.
I think if Dundee are going to get anything out of this game, Charlie Adam, for me, has to be fit, in my opinion, because I think that Dundee midfield is a little bit vulnerable, and I think Rangers, if they can get the balance right, I think will not blow them away, but I think they'll be fairly comfortable. So that's where I sort of see that battle developing, really in the centre of the midfield. But you talk about Livy there, and great result against Celtic, of course. But we obviously know Hearts have had a very good start. Will they be disappointed by drawing in Dingwall last week? Perhaps, but they did fall 2-1 behind in that game, but they didn't get a result. And Robbie Nielsen's Hearts have made a good start, and Livingston going down there, tough place to go, Tynecastle. We know how good, we know how good Hearts are on their day. They beat Celtic already this season. they've showcased that they are a very competent side who, in my opinion, will be in the top 6 this season. I just think that if Livingston can get a point at Tynecastle, I think that would be a sensational result. Obviously, if they were to win, it would be absolutely unbelievable. I think the same goes for Dundee. I think if they were to get anything out the game on Saturday, it would be a bonus for them because, realistically speaking, they need to be beating the teams like your Livingstons, your St Mirrens, your Ross Counties at the wrong end of the table. And the same obviously applies for Livy. It's a mini league, as I always talk about, at the bottom. And if you can win it against the sides in and around you and finish top of that mini league, then you're going to be absolutely fine. And usually 9 times out of 10.
Let's go back into St Johnstone for a minute. And you might not be able to read my laptop here, but you'll notice a wee picture. Now, you'll notice that Ali Crawford has got the wee funny look to Sean Rooney after the game last night. It's got the makings of a sitcom, that photo. And that's executively done by Alan Temple of the Courier there. Very well played, sir, and that was in response to the Premier Sports interview after St Johnstone's win over Dundee. Just Ali Crawford giving the eyes to Sean Rooney. It's just a blessing within itself. It was just, when I seen this morning, Grant, I just laughed.
Yes,
I walked at the same time.
It's not bad, is it? I thought that was quite good.
Yeah. Back to the City of Discovery then. Dundee United against Hibs. We are going to get team news for you in just a couple of minutes, but a big game for both clubs this time, Grant. I mean, you've got Thomas Coates that has started this tenure very well. I mean, you got a lot of unjustified sticking based in the Premier Sports Cup group stages and also the display at Tawdry. But he's responded brilliantly with victories over Aberdeen, St Johnstone, Rangers, and the Dundee Derby last Sunday. He's worked wonders at Tannadice so far, and he'll look to continue that this evening. It's a big game for Dundee United in particular. It's
an intriguing game, David, because you've got Dundee United who seem to be thriving on the big stage, thriving on the television stage. You know, the game against Rangers, they were absolutely superb, and the game against Dundee, it wasn't the greatest of games. I think we can all be safe to say that, but they got the win, and it doesn't matter how you win games. Just win them, whether they're swashbuckling football or the scruffy 1-0s. And that's the thing about Thomas Coates. He is trying to mould himself into the new Callum Davidson, isn't he? He's trying to be quite solid, make his team quite solid defensively, quite tough to break down, but crucially, try and hit at the right times. And what I love about Dundee United is they have a very good workman-like midfield. They've got a lot of energy, but I think what is lacking from their game is the goals. I think Ian Harkes is going to be a huge player for Dundee United, obviously with Jamie Robson leaving the club. I really like Jandro Fuchs in the middle of the pitch. I just think he's an absolute warrior in there. Reminds me of a guy in the Northern Ireland game called Fuad Souley, who plays for Larne. So if you want to go and check that out later on, you can do. I think he's an absolute monster in the middle of the pitch. He's just a destructor. Fuchs, I think, he reminds me of him. What I love about Dundee United is that they are not being flashy. And you know what I love about Coates, David, is he's not completely ripped up Mickey Mellon's kind of DNA of the club when he was at the club last season. He's sort of used his ideas and tinkered with it ever so slightly, adapted it to suit his methods in a manner of speaking. I do think they need to score more goals, and I think they'll need to do that as the season progresses. But if you're keeping the door shut at the back, 9 times out of 10, you've got a chance of getting a result. And I think defensively, getting an experienced players like Mulgrew, obviously Reynolds was already there. You Edwards in the defence, Siegrist in goal. They have good, solid defenders in there, and it was a good, very competent goalkeeper that will make a big difference in that United team. And I just feel that if you can set your team up right defensively, you've always got a chance. I always feel that maybe I'm old school here, but you can play brilliant football all you want and score 3 goals. If you can't keep the door shut at the back, you ain't going to score any points. And points make prizes at the end of the day. And I think Dundee United are getting there. I think they've had 2 very good wins, as we mentioned there, the Dundee Derby and obviously the Rangers game. And you also touched on the St Johnstone win as well, which should not be underestimated, by the way. I think that's a very good point. But I think if you rewind all the way back to that first game of the season against Aberdeen, it's night and day. The game at Pittodrie, I thought Aberdeen were absolutely comfortable in that game. Dundee United were absolutely dreadful. But flick it a switch to now, it's almost like the roles have reversed. Dundee United have actually looked like a team that could conceivably compete in the top 6, whereas Aberdeen certainly do not. And I think United are going about things in the right way. But Hibs tonight will be a good test for them because Hibs are a good side. They are, in my opinion, the side that are favourite to finish behind the Glasgow Big Two if we think Glasgow Big Two will be 1-2. Hibs could conceivably split them. I don't think they will. I think they'll finish third. I think they'll tail off. But Hibs have got good players. Boyle has been outstanding at the start of the season. McGuinness has been magnificent from midfield. We know what Kevin Nisbet can do. We know what they can do in the midfield. They've got, again, destructors in there like Gogic, Newell, so many options in there. But Dundee United can get at Hibs defensively. We've seen Hibs at times look vulnerable at the back. Porteous looks like he's got a mistake in his game. We saw Macy make a mistake in the St Mirren game at the weekend. I think this is an intriguing game, David, and I'm not really sure how I'm going to call this game yet. So don't ask me for a prediction because I need to have a think about this.
We'll let you work your brains. Let's look back at some comments. Thanks very much for sending your comments. Some very good comments here. You're actually getting a wee bit of a compliment here, Grant Campbell, from Daniel MC, saying, "Do you guys loves to roll a tricky name off the tongue?" Everybody that doesn't know Dr. Grant Campbell, he does have a scientific brain about him, so we've got to compliment that. We also have a comment in here from, it was Daniel again, with regards to the Ali Crawford and Sean Rooney photo, saying, "It looks like a sketch from Owen Excuse."
Yes, it does.
One question now on the original point, and it's from Kenny Whitson. I think it is a very good point because United have only scored 3 in 6 league games, Grant, and that's the problem, he says. But you need to take it into consideration that 3 goals to score resulted in wins, 1-0 wins. Johnstone, Rangers, and indeed Dundee.
Absolutely, which is what I was trying to say earlier on. I think if you're very solid defensively and you can keep the door shut at the back, you've always got a chance. And as I said, it doesn't have to be swashbuckling football and you score 4 and they only score 3 to win games. Sometimes you just have to be resolute defensively and hit at the right times. It might be from a set piece, it might be from a moment of brilliance like we saw with the Harks goal and Sunday. I do feel that Dundee United are evolving into an exciting team. I said last season that I thought Dundee United had a chance of making it into the top 6 if Mellon had stayed at the club. I wasn't sure how Coates would do since he's come in, but fair play to him. He's done quite well so far. I still think there's more to come from him. I still think there's more to come from Dundee United.
Let's get some team news, shall we? We'll start with the visitors, Hibernian, because we've obviously spoken a lot about Dundee United. In goals, Matt Macy, 6, Paul McGinn, Porteous, Hanlon, Stevenson, Doyle Hayes, Ewell, McGuinness, Allen, Boyle, and Nisbet. Strong team this evening, Grant.
Yeah, interesting lineup. I'm quite surprised Josh Doig is not playing, which is intriguing. I don't even know if he's on the bench or is injured, but it is a strong Hibs team. It shows that Jack Ross has not taken Dundee United lightly, which is very interesting. Obviously, we know from the past that we all will remember that infamous semi-final, don't we, when Jason Cummings tried to Panenka a penalty and put it over the top. I think it'll be an intriguing game tonight. And credit to Jack Ross, he's gone bold with that Hibs team. He's not taken any chances. And, I think it'll be an interesting game tonight. I do feel, as I mentioned earlier on with Hibs, you're going to have to be resolute defensively. I do think that will be massive for them tonight. I mentioned Newell earlier on. He's going to have a big play. I forgot about Doyle Hayes. I was talking about that midfield dynamics in there. Doyle Hayes is a really good player. I'm excited to see how Scott Allen does tonight. That seems to be a big call for Hibs. I didn't expect him to be started. But, we know what Scott Allen can produce. So tonight might be his night. And
like team news comes London buses. The Dundee United team has been announced. We've got Carson back in goals for Dundee United after Siegrist got the big call from Tom Coates on Sunday. The rest of the team is Mulgrew, Pollock, McNulty, Clark, Edwards, Levitt, Freeman, Harks, McMahon, and Fuchs. Another strong team there, Grant.
Absolutely. I really like Levitt. I thought he was really good when he came on Sunday in the Dundee derby. And, obviously a Man United Academy graduate. He's a player potentially in the making, so he'll be one to definitely keep an eye on. Scott McMahon, by the way, is a bit of an underrated player. I think Scott McMahon is a guy who I thought always did a very competent job when he was at Hamilton Academical. And what I really like about him is he he's a bit like Callum Butcher. He gets stuck in and makes some big challenges in there. And I think he'll be very important. Big night tonight for Mark McNulty. I think, Nicky Clark, for me, I think has always been looking to as Dundee United's go-to man. He's scored some big goals. McNulty needs to add goals to his game since he's come to the club. I think this could be a big night for him. But it's a very interesting United team. And it sounds like to me, David, that they're kind of matching each other up with the two up front for both teams.
Kenny Whitson back in. He's one of the more mature guests I have in terms of viewing it the show. Would you agree that when he says that Scott Allen won't last the 90 minutes, or do you think he's got enough in him to last 90 minutes?
I kind of agree. I don't think he'll last 90 minutes tonight, and that's why I'm quite surprised he started the game. He's the sort of guy that I'd be maybe bringing on with maybe 25 minutes to go, maybe adding a little bit of an impact. I know James Scott has been ill.
Sorry, especially this game could go extra time penalties tonight as well.
Well, this is it. And I think, you look at the fact that James Scott was ill at the weekend against St Mirren. I think maybe he wasn't risk because he's maybe not fully fit. I think he might have started tonight. You got Gogic in there. I was looking at the bench just now. Doig amongst the substitutes. I think Daniel Mackay might be an interesting player to bring on tonight. If Hibs are looking for a goal, he's at times shown that he is very capable of being a big player in a Hibs shirt. So I'm just intrigued to see how this game will go. And I think this could be one of the most even of the 4 quarterfinals tonight.
Are we ready for a prediction?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Hibs to win this on penalties.
Lovely job, boy. I think we'd all love to see penalties. I mean, I'm pretty sure the game tonight will not appreciate penalties, considering it's probably windy as hell in Dundee right now. But penalties isn't a bad thing, I suppose. So let's go back to Glasgow. Obviously, we'll have the Celtic State of Mind on at 7:15 tonight, prior to the 7:45 kickoff, which is on Premier Sports, and I believe Radio Scotland 81 on medium wave as well. Celtic against Raith Rovers. From a Celtic point of view, Grant, it'll need to be a professional performance from Celtic this evening, especially after the disappointment over the last week or so. It's
very simple for Celtic tonight, just win the game. We all know, and it's well documented, Celtic's away form being not good enough so far under Ange Postecoglou. And tonight is a big opportunity for Celtic to get to a cup semi-final. Last campaign in the Cups, they were bitterly disappointing. They lost very early on in the League Cup, didn't they, to Ross County. And they'll be wanting to get back to Hampden. It was a dreadful campaign for Celtic in the Cups last season. Tonight is a step forward to hopefully getting back to Hampden and maybe even getting to a final later down the line and trying to win back a trophy.
Okay, let's get some team news. Celtic's starting lineup tonight is as follows: Hart in goal, Ralston, Carter Vickers, Starfelt, Montgomery, McCarthy, Turnbull, Abada, Rogic, Jota, and Ayeti. A strong team, but my first question to you, Grant, is: do you think a clean sheet's the big agenda for Celtic tonight?
I said they have to win the game, but absolutely second on your list, and you're absolutely said that there, David. They have to keep a clean sheet tonight. It's a big night, I feel, for that centre-back partnership of Carter Vickers and Starfelt. Is this the centre-back partnership that Ange is hanging his hat on and saying that is my 1 and 2 or my first choice centre-backs? Obviously, because Julian is not back yet. That is a big concern long-term for Celtic, but, at the moment that could be interesting. I'm pleased to see James McCarthy in the team tonight, David. I think tonight will be the night we'll actually see how good James McCarthy actually is, because, I was very critical, I think, on last week's show when I said to the guys that I felt that, at half-time they had to bring Ismail Asoro off and bring on James McCarthy at half-time, and I felt that Ange got it wrong that night. Well, they start him tonight, so you've got a little bit of experience in that middle of the pitch, and it's a big night for McCarthy, because he's going to have to sit there and do the just cleaning up and maybe start attacks. And you've got guys there, you've got really good attacking players there like Abada, Rogic. Jota's looked very good. Maybe needs to add a bit more quality of goals to his game, but he looks really sharp. And he's obviously got a couple of goals under his belt, but it has to be a professional performance from Celtic tonight, one. But crucially, they have to keep a clean sheet, because if they don't, it will raise question marks once again as to how strong the Celtic defence is over the course of the season.
Do you agree? I understand your knowledge in itself, just have to go and win the game tonight, but a comment just came in here from Terence Part saying, if Raith Rovers at home, it's got to be a 3-0 Celtic win minimum, and we've got to be respectful to Raith Rovers, but you've also got to understand that Celtic just need to be professional tonight.
Absolutely. I think 3-0 is probably a good marker. I think if you're a golfer and you're playing this game, obviously in golfing terms, you're looking to get more than your par 4. It's almost like a par 5. You have to try and eagle it or get a birdie at the very worst here. And I think you look at this game and, I'm quite surprised at a couple of things, David. I thought maybe Liam Scales may have got his debut tonight. Noticed he's on the bench. Interesting that they've gone with Hart in goal for this, but I can understand why. I don't expect Joe Hart to have a busy night in goal. But it's a very interesting team. Giacomakis is on the bench. I wonder if we'll see him tonight. But yeah, I think Celtic need to be looking to win this game reasonably comfortably. But let's not take anything away from Raith. They're on the quarter-final stage on merit. They had a very good win against Aberdeen in the previous round. And this is a free hit absolutely for Raith tonight because they haven't started magnificently well in the Championship. But I think John McGlynn will be looking forward to the game. He'll be nervous, but I think he'll be looking forward to it.
Yeah. Back on to an original point we raised at the top of the show. Alan Patullo from the Scotsman has raised the point with regards to Dundee Aberdeen being at 6 p.m. on the 16th of October. It's apparently for American television. I think it's a novel reason, Grant, for Scottish football fans to be inconvenienced.
Well, very interesting news. I just wonder if maybe Dave Cormack's got a few friends over in the States that want to watch the game. That is very interesting news, that.
Absolutely. We haven't had the Raith Rovers team news released yet. If everybody notices it before we end the show, it'd be much appreciated because there's nothing in the Twitter. I'm trying to look in Google, but we'll keep you updated. But Raith Rovers, it's a free hit for them tonight, Grant.
It is, and I think Raith did so well against Aberdeen in the previous round. They came from a goal down to win the game 2-1. I thought Dario Zanata was really good in that game, and obviously Riley Snow was very important in that match as well. I spoke to Stuart Mitchell about that Raith Rovers victory against Aberdeen a while back. Obviously, he was commentating on a few Raith Rovers games this season, and he's been mightily impressed by John McGlynn and the way he sets his teams up. But it's been a tough start for Raith. They obviously had the problem, with Dunfermline and the game getting called off because of the floodlight failure and all that nonsense at Starks Park. That has hindered them. There's no doubt about it, that has hindered them. But they did have that good result at Ayr United. They are getting there. They have a very experienced team. They've got Jamie McDonald in there. They've got Christophe Berra at the back. It'll be a big night for him. Kyle Benedictus, I've always rated in that defence. I think he's got real potential. But if Raith are going to get something tonight, they've got to be brave, but they've got players, I think, that can cause that Celtic defence some problems. Celtic aren't masterclasses at the back, as we've seen this season. So Raith must go into this game believing that they can nick a goal. And if they can get the first goal tonight, well, they can start believing. But I think it's going to be a long night for them, and I fancy Celtic fairly comfortably here.
Terence Pat is on fire tonight. We've got another question from a Celtic point of view. The loss at Livingston ended the Ange Postecoglou honeymoon, in his opinion. Do you agree with that, Grant?
Yes, absolutely agree. I think, in fact, I actually felt the honeymoon period had ended after they lost to Real Betis. I felt that the Betis game was almost a carbon copy of what happened with Milan and Lille over the past couple of years under Neil Lennon. And I feel like Celtic are not learning from past mistakes. And I think, you look at what Ange has done since he's come in. I think he's made Celtic a very exciting team to watch, but he hasn't addressed the big elephant in the room, which is defensively. And we've talked so often on the show about the goalkeeping situation. They seem to have half sorted that with Joe Hart coming in. I don't think he's the full answer, but he's certainly a better option to Bain and Barkas already. But I do feel that, the honeymoon period is over. They've lost 3 games in the league all the way from home. They've lost at Tynecastle, they've lost at Ibrox, and they've lost at the Tony Macaroni Stadium. They're already well behind Rangers in the league. They can't afford to really drop any more points, even at this early stage. And, they simply have to win this game tonight, because if they don't, the pressure will absolutely amplify massively. In fact, it will amplify to John Barnes levels off the back of Super Cali from the back end of the...
Absolutely. So, have you got an idea how do you think the game will go with this evening at Celtic Park?
I think Raith will compete. I think they will try to make it difficult. I expect them to sit in and cause Celtic problems to try and break them down. But I think if Celtic get an early goal, which I think they will, I think they'll rack up maybe a 4-0 win, which sounds harsh because I love Raith as a club. They're a very proud club in Scottish football, and I wish them well as a neutral. I hope they do well, because obviously they beat my team Aberdeen in the the last 16. But I just think Celtic, with that quality of that starting 11, will have too much.
We're going to end with Raith Rovers. Dyer Zanata's done very well since arriving at Starks Park.
He has, and I think Zanata, when he first broke onto the scene in Scottish football, had that rawness in his game. There looked like there was a player there, but he was snatching at chances. He was choosing the wrong options. He was getting in a little bit of a mess. And I think at times he just needed somebody to say to him, look, you're getting in the right areas. Just show a bit of composure and take your time when you get in that positions to either take the shot on or play a key pass. And I think that's one that he really has improved in his game. And he was excellent in the game against Aberdeen in the previous round. And you know what I love about Zanata, David? I just think that, he looks like he's at home in that Raith shirt. Okay, it's a step down. He's playing championship level football. But he's still at a good age where that if he does have a good season, a club in the top flight might take a chance on him and think, this guy still has something about him and he could offer something a bit different. And tonight is a bit of a free go at it for him tonight because he could give that defence some problems. But, it will be interesting. It could be a tough shift for him tonight, but he has started the season very well for Raith.
Finally, a quality journalist in Alan Temple from the Courier has mentioned it's a mountainous task for Raith Rovers tonight, but it's a wonderful opportunity for John McGlynn's men.
It is, and I think it is. It is the equivalent of climbing Everest for Raith tonight. They have to feel like that they can go into this game with nothing to lose. They have to give it every chance. They have to stay in the game. That is the first point of the matter. They have to stay in the game because the longer they stay in the game, the longer they can believe that they can get something. We know the quality of Jamie McDonald as a goalkeeper. He's going to have a big game tonight. Christoph Berra is going to have a big game tonight. You look at the spine of that Raith team, they're all going to have to do a job. They're all going to have to, every single player in that Raith team is going to have to get in a challenge and stop the cross, make things very difficult, and crucially offer an out ball that maybe can get their team up the pitch, maybe win a free kick on the halfway line, like as a Nata or someone like that. I think John McGlynn will see this as a bit of an opportunity to maybe kickstart their own league campaign because, that if they want to get into the top flight, as Raith, they're a very ambitious club. They were in the playoffs last year. Celtic are a level that they should be aspiring to. And if you're not motivated for playing one of the biggest clubs in Scottish football, then you're completely in the wrong game. And I like John McGlynn. I think he's a really good coach. I think he's a really infectious character. I spoke to Paul Smith last year for the now unfortunately no longer running SPFL 42 show, and I think they have a really good setup there. And I think it's really exciting to see how they will get on. As I said, they've had a very difficult start. Things haven't quite gone well for them. They had a lot of issues with COVID as well. But, they were to even put in a positive performance tonight, but didn't get the result. I think they would be happy with that.
Absolutely. So thank you very much for tuning in. It's been a great show this evening, and we've definitely spoken in great detail with regards to the 4 games. Congratulations to Johnstone and indeed Rangers on winning last night, and all the best to all 4 clubs concerned tonight in their respective games. I've been David Smith. He's been Dr. Grant Campbell, and we thank you very much for tuning in.